quick discussion about Metal Gear Solid. It's finally back. Obviously the Metal Gear Solid games were delisted many years ago at this point, and it's been Metal Gear's been kind of dormant, other than the game that really I should not name, but I will name it. Metal Gear Solid. Jesus, I can't even remember what it was called. Metal Gear Solid Survive. Yes, that game where it also charged you for an extra save file as DLC. So yeah, wonderful. But yeah, Metal Gear Solid, the remake for Snake Eater was shown at the PS5. Was it the PlayStation? Yeah, I think it was the PS5 conference, which wasn't. I didn't think particularly that great. Honestly, I've this year the game shows have been pretty lackluster. Really, PlayStation didn't show much personally to me that really interests me, other than the Snake Eater remake, which again they didn't show much to that either. So that was kind of interesting. We also have the Xbox One. It's also coming to Xbox, Snake Eater the remake, and it's apparently, from what I've been told or what I've read rumored, it's just going to be the original voice actors. I don't know if they're doing re-recordings of the original audio or if it's just going to be just a straight up sort of HD remaster or a proper remake. I assume it's a proper remake, which is kind of cool. Snake Eater is by far my favourite of the Metal Gear series. It's definitely the most challenging as well, for sure. I have got a bit of Metal Gear Solid 2, Sons of Liberty footage playing in the background, as you can see. The HD collection. But the new collection looks kind of interesting. It's got a lot of... and I killed the president. It's got a lot of interesting little quirks to it. But obviously they also showed it at the Switch. Nintendo Switch thing. The Xbox or the Nintendo showcase was the most interesting. For me, it was just Metal Gear, and of course, you've also got the Arkham series coming to Switch. Not something that interests me personally because I've played the Arkham games to death at this point. But it's definitely a good thing for Switch owners. I think the Switch is reaching its end of life cycle soon. I think it will be. There'll be announcements sooner or later of something, a newer piece of hardware, or I don't know what they do next. Maybe a Switch 2. I really want Game Boy to come back, but probably highly unlikely. But saying that, on the Switch stuff, before we sort of delve into the Metal Gear Solid news, you've got Super Mario RPG, which is a remake of the SNES game. It's a game I've never even played. I've seen footage of it, but never played it. And there's a new Super Mario. God, my shooting in this sucks. Super Mario Wonder, I believe it was called. There's been quite a few interesting things coming from Nintendo, and obviously Xbox finally have announced some good stuff. It's taken them bleeding long enough. But yeah, so the Metal Gear Solid collection. So you've got Metal Gear Solid 1, PS1 version as well. 2, Sons of Liberty, the footage I'm showing, and Snake Eater. They're all coming to both Switch, Xbox, PlayStation. I'm fairly sure it will come to Steam as well, although I'm not 100% sure on that one. This should be quite an interesting collection. Now I've got them twice. I've got Snake Eater, Sons of Liberty. No, I've got Sons. No, sorry, Snake Eater and Peace Walker. I've already got on PS3 digital. And because it says Volume 1, I'm assuming there will be a Volume 2, including Peace Walker, Guns of the Patriot, Metal Gear Solid 4, and the weird little spin-off games like on the PSP. I don't think there was any other PlayStation Vita. I'm not 100% sure. There were some card games, I believe, as well. So yeah, so there's quite a lot of interesting stuff going on with Metal Gear. And also, you've also got Metal Gear Solid, or Metal Gear 1 and Metal Gear 2, which are also coming to, I think they're part of the Snake Eater collection, because Snake Eater has those two games, the MSX games, but they're also bringing the NES games, which don't actually have anything really related. They're not really canon in terms of the Metal Gear Solid series, but it would be nice to see those two games get a remake. Kind of like Capcom's doing, because Capcom has really been hitting it out of the park with their remakes of the Resident Evil series. 3 had some issues, but it was still an enjoyable game, just more so because there was so much content. The one downer of this collection, I would say, unless it comes, maybe it might appear in like a volume 3 or volume 2, and we'll get straight to that, is the sadly Twin Snakes. Now, it's an interesting game, Twin Snakes, because it's essentially just a remake of the PS1 game running, but using I believe it's the Sons of Liberty engine. I'd like to see that in the collection, because it's a very hard game to get hold of now, and it's also a very expensive game to get hold of. You're talking in the vein of something like between £60 and £80. So, although I still prefer the PS1 version, regardless of graphics, the PS1 version it's got slightly more iconic music. I think the music has some differences, but again, I'm probably coming from a sort of a nostalgia sort of point of view. Guns of Patriot. This is an interesting one. I've had numerous copies of this. I like bits of Metal Gear Solid 4. Going back to Shadow Moses is awesome. That's if I could hang out there, I'd hang there the whole time in the whole game, because it's just the best bit of the game. And Guns of Patriot obviously ends the timeline as such. There obviously are some spin-offs like the Raiden game. I cannot remember what that was called now. But I wasn't. It was alright, but I'm not that keen on that type of genre of game personally. But I played some of it, and it was reasonably enjoyable. But it wasn't Metal Gear, you know. But so yeah. As I said, I've already got 2 copies of the the Snake Eater and Peace Walker. I also picked this up a couple of years back. This is actually a US copy of the Legacy Collection. I'm not even sure if this came out in the UK. The only reason I actually bought this was because it had Metal Gear Solid. Well, the assumption was it has the original Metal Gear Solid on there, but it's kind of like that thing with the digital where you can get one game on the little cartridge, and then you have to download the other 2. This is the same thing. It's got a code in there for the original Metal Gear Solid, but of course, it's US based, so obviously I imagine you have to log into the US PSN, and the PS3 one at this point is pretty ropey. It's very, very slow, and it doesn't really get any updates anymore, unlike the PS4 and the PS5 stores. So that was the only reason I kind of bought that, but again, that's got all the games on, basically every game but that game on it, and obviously Twin Snakes. So it was kind of annoying, because that's the only reason I actually bought that version of the game. But I think this is when I got it a couple of years back. It was about £34 brand new. Since then, I don't know what the price is. I imagine it's gone up like everything has in the world at the moment. But well worth getting, and I imagine it's much easier to get in the US than it is in the UK. But that is it's interesting because there's a lot going on there. You've also got I believe there's a digital soundtrack, and also there's an art book or something, and history of the characters and stuff. So they are sort of paying homage to Metal Gear and actually making some effort for once, because I mean, Metal Gear Survive was just truly appalling. To actually see them try and spin off Metal Gear into some type of survival crafting game, it was just a complete finger pretty much to Kojima. Obviously, everyone knows within reason what went on, but obviously we'll never know for truly what actually went on there and such. But it's going to be sad to see there's going to be no Kojima part of any of this and any Metal Gear Solid games going forward. But if they do what they're doing with the Silent Hill stuff, where they make the games to like third-party developers or something, although I do believe the Snake Eater remake that they're doing is in-house, whereas Silent Hill 2 has been made by another company. So I don't know. I mean, Silent Hill 2 again. That was the first positive news for fans. Well, for old fans of Konami as a company, because they used to put out some of the best, if not the best, stuff on Mega Drive and Super Nintendo, especially. I mean, they're just their caliber at the time in the 90s. You know, from Turtles, Contra, and a lot of side-scrolling beat 'em ups, just immense. So hopefully this is a step in the right direction for them. They're going to get back into gaming and actually have a bit of respect for it. But after their Chinko machines, as everyone pretty knows as such. But yeah, it's good news all around. It's nice to see the Switch getting a bit of love as well, because I'm still, well, last time I played it, I'm still rolling through Tears of the Kingdom, but it's going to take me decades to get through that game. It took me, I think, it was about a year or two to finish Breath of the Wild, dropping in and out of it every now and then. And that's without even replayed Resident Evil 4 yet. And of course, because I do a lot of my streaming on PS3. PS3 is a complete bitch of a system to record from, or even stream from, because it's got that HDCP on the HDMI port, or the actual software that controls it, if I'm understanding correctly. And it's been a pain in the ass to just to record. Even with a splitter, it just doesn't work half the time. So I've bought some component cables and a component adapter, so I should be able to capture it with. It won't be as high quality as HDMI, but it should look pretty good. So that's on its way. So looking forward to messing around with that. And even the PSN store itself, there's some pretty hidden gems on there that, obviously physical wise, they're stupidly expensive, but on that store there's quite a lot of stuff on there. But the older I get, the less time I have to honestly play a lot of the time. There's just got too many games to even contend with at this point. I mean, if I ever finish any of them, it'll be a miracle. I've still got in my back catalogue of games that I've bought and I still haven't played. I've got on the GameCube front, Super Mario Sunshine. What else have we got? Metroid Prime 1, Metroid Prime 2, Metroid Prime 3, Sonic 2 on the Master System, RE4 Original at some point, plus 3DS and bits and bobs like that. So it's just too many games. So I'm just going to stick to a couple. And then, of course, in the next couple of months, you've got Xbox are dropping Starfield, which I'm not a big fan of Skyrim. I wasn't particularly that sort of enamored with any of those types of games. It just didn't interest me. But I have to admit, Starfield looks kind of interesting. The amount of customization they're showing is immense. But I mean, again, the only kicker with that is it's 30 frames a second on console, which doesn't, well, this is a complete preference thing. Some people prefer higher resolution. I personally prefer higher frame rate. I'm quite happy to drop the frame rate in return for drop the resolution in return for a higher frame rate. Personally, I'm on like my video card is a modest card. It's like a 3060 Ti, which is reasonably powerful, 1080p and 1440p as such. So it's not too bad. But so I probably will be, if I do get the chance to play it and have the time, I'll probably be playing it on PC, just because I would assume they should, although stranger things have happened, they should support 60 frames a second. I would hope on PC, because PC is just that little bit more powerful. And the prices actually finally are starting to come down on, particularly on GPUs. That's mainly due to the fact that no sod's buying them. Nvidia's current crop of GPUs they released this year have been a complete joke price wise, what they've been charging for them. Particularly the 4060 Ti, it's an okay card if it's your first card, but if you're running something like I'm running, it's barely an increase in performance other than power efficiency and DLSS 3 and frame generation. And if you actually look at what they're saying now, like the going off topic a bit, I suppose, but they're sort of talking about, it's 8 times faster than a 1060, like with DLSS and frame generation. You're like, well, that's not really true performance, is it? That's just upscaling. So and there's been some dirt on AMD as well, apparently paying the developers not to add in DLSS, and obviously you've still got the Microsoft and FTC, CMA, and now the New Zealand. I don't know what the New Zealand one's called. Have sort of jumped in to try and block the Activision Xbox deal. So there's a lot going on in the gaming industry at the moment, and it's fascinating, a lot of it. And particularly if Microsoft don't get this deal through, I believe they have to pay something like $3 billion or something for the deal for it to be cancelled. Or I don't fully understand it, but that's a lot of chunk change for sure. So yeah, good news all around on the Metal Gear front. It's fantastic to see it back. I would assume will Metal Gear Solid 5 Phantom Pain come with that collection? I don't know if it will. That game needs finishing. I don't think it ever will be finished, but if it was finished, it would be fantastic to see. Because that game was really, really interesting. Alright, it wasn't the best Metal Gear game in terms of creativity wise. Like, obviously you can approach missions in different ways, and I don't know, must have played about 100 plus hours of that game, but it was good. It's not complete. The game is incomplete. The last parts of the game are literally just artist renders of what would possibly have happened and stuff. So I want to see, obviously, Metal Gear and Metal Gear 2 get some type of like full remakes, tell the full story of Big Boss Naked Snake and how he goes from being essentially the hero in a way, I guess, to being sort of kind of like Anakin in Star Wars, from being the chosen one to being the big bad by the end of it. So that'd be kind of cool, because obviously Metal Gear and Metal Gear 2, I believe you play as Solid Snake. So the Metal Gear series is crazy anyway. The plot lines are just out there, man, absolutely out there. And Sons of Liberty, as you're seeing now, is probably the most relevant game in terms of, from standards of like politics and media and news, and how all they want is they just want all your information. It's quite interesting how this game has kind of predicted in some regards how things have gone, especially politically and stuff. And this came out, was it 2001? So very, very interesting. And I hate this section of the game, by the way, that you're seeing. This is an absolute bloody nightmare. The swimming sections on Metal Gear are always quite tricky because of the way the controls are sort of set up, and that. This is the bit where you have to save. You have to go and save, I believe it's Emma, before you have the fight with Vamp, I believe it is. Yeah, I got a lot of memories. So again, all nostalgia, but a lot of memories of this particular game. Snake Eater is still my favourite, just because it's got the boss fights in Snake Eater are just, especially the end. That's just a tremendously interesting boss fight. I don't know who come up with the eye. Not the end. Is it the end? Is it the end? The old dude with the sniper rifle. I mean, in the PS2 version, you can actually turn your clock forward on the PS2, and he will die of old age. But it's a fascinating boss fight. There's quite a lot of interesting ones on this. The one I haven't finished Sons of Liberty yet is the Metal Gear Ray fight. I just, for some reason, just at the time, I could never beat it. I've done it before, back on the PS2. And there's a couple of ports, I believe, on the Xbox, and there's also another a version with a better camera on the PS2 and Xbox, I believe, because I think you can do there's a version called, I can't remember what it's called. It's like an enhanced version of the game, but you can do there's skateboarding from Tony Hawk's on it and stuff like that, which is kind of interesting. But it's an interesting time to be a Metal Gear fan. Finally, we get something not new per se, but hopefully we might get something new if this is successful. I think this will be. I think most fans will probably buy this. It has been a number of years since the whole Kojima and Konami fiasco sort of ended now, I guess. But yeah, it wasn't looking good for Konami for many years there. They were really hated by a lot of people, and so I suppose so they should in some regards, but it's good to see them waking up a bit, because I think all they were doing was pachinko gambling machines, and that was about it. Oh Christ, it's Stillman.